Mr. President, in today's rapidly changing world, you never know where conflict may arise. In the last 10 years, we've seen the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the Iran-Iraq war, Vietnam's occupation of Cambodia, conflicts in Africa and Central America, attacks on shipping in the Gulf, one crisis after another in the Lebanon and the Middle East, and for us, the battle for the freedom of the Falklands. Times of great change are also times of uncertainty and even danger. The lesson is that you must always keep your defenses strong so that you're prepared for any situation.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece is from the Trumpet magazine, and it's also online. The links will be on my site. It's called Axis of Authoritarians. It highlights something which I actually hinted at in my 500th episode, funnily enough, the rise of Russia and the allying with China. We must all pay attention to this. We ignore this threat at our peril. Here are a number of questions that we need to be answered, certainly to my satisfaction. Why is China buying up so much of the world's natural resources? Why are we allowing them to control world markets with their subsidized currencies? Why is it that we stand back and repeat the mistakes that Western nations made before World War II? We believed naively that their intentions at the time, i.e. Germany and Japan, were benign. Through history, we know that not to be the case. Yet we allow unchecked the massing of large armies and navies without as much as, we are concerned, and we are monitoring them. Ditto Russia. If we stand idly by, as I said in that podcast, there can only be one outcome. Anyone with a brain will know that you can't use the same bluff again, i.e. the one that Kennedy used in the 1960s. Russia is on the move. A few tanks in Eastern Europe won't stop them. Neither will a few small localized nukes. They know that, and we know they know that. Putin, I believe, like many others, will call our bluff. Just as I said in that podcast, what do we do if he does march in on one of those Eastern European countries? Do we fold? Isn't that the question? Because if we do, he won't stop there. The same applies to China. China intends to attack at a time of its choosing Taiwan. They made that perfectly clear. They are a very patient people. It could happen tomorrow or 50 years from now. But make no mistake, they will attack. What's our answer? To carry on doing business with them as normal, while they spend every waking hour stealing our intellectual property with one goal in mind, to attack us. By us, I mean the West. They won't attack us one at a time. It will be all at once, with an overwhelming force. Yet we seem doomed to carry on as though it's 1938, or in America's case, 1941. And maybe that scenario might play out yet again, where part of the world is attacked, while others carry on with their social justice and climate change. Look at it from the other side, not just our side. We are dumbing down and doing everything to weaken our societies, while they're doing everything to strengthen theirs. Take the 30,000-foot view and tell me what you see. Here's the piece from the Trumpet magazine. China and Russia are more aligned than at any point since the 1950s. That was the conclusion of a January report to the United States Director of National Intelligence. Bloomberg took an even bolder view in November 2018, saying Russia and China are now as close as any time in the last 400 years of their shared history. Most analysts recognize the deepening relationship between the two most powerful nations in the world and most populous continents, but few realize that this new reality has major implications for every person alive. The new Russia-China axis gives urgent cause for each of us to be sobered and take stock of our lives, yet this new reality also points to a far greater development on the horizon that will fill us with profound hope respecting Russia. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union and China were often at odds, but the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. But for the next decade, Russia was a defeated, depleted power outside of the mainstream world affairs. During this time, much of Western Europe looked down on Russia to a degree, but not China. The Chinese recognized that they had much to learn from the Russians about armaments and warfare, and they understood that to stand up to the West in the future, they would need a partner. So during those years of Russian weakness and instability, China treated Russia with what Gene Wilson, author of Strategic Partners, Russia-Chinese Relations in post-Soviet era, calls scrupulous respect. In 1992, when the dust from the Soviet collapse only started to settle, Chinese Premier Li Ping met the Russian President Boris Yeltsin in New York, where they agreed to boost their relations. That December, Yeltsin accepted an invitation to visit Beijing, an event both sides said signalled a new phase in the Russia-China ties. Intensive diplomatic activity over the next few years resulted in a massive reduction of troops on the former China-Soviet border and the formation of a constructive partnership. Wilson says China's outreach to Russia during this time went a long way to assuage Russia's wounded ego. Throughout the Vladimir Putin era starting in 2000, China's esteem for Russia has only increased. When Hu Jintao became China's leader in 2003, his first trip abroad was to visit Putin. For the next decade, the relationship flourished. By the time that Xi Jinping took the reins from Hu in 2013, China had become the world's second largest economy. And though Russia's economy was smaller than that of New York, Xi's first presidential trip abroad was also to Russia. He and Putin became fast friends and have met dozens of times since. On the foundation of China treating Russia as if it were still a superpower, and with a common goal of dismantling the United States-led international order, both China and Russia grew stronger, and their camaraderie deepened, marching lockstep in international politics. Russia and China's cooperation is accomplishing nothing short of reshaping the world, whether allying to oppose Western interests in the Middle East, the Korean Peninsula, and Venezuela, all supporting each other's growing territorial appetites in the former Soviet nations and the South China Sea. Russia and China are reshaping international politics. Economic developments tell the same story. In 2010, China overtook Germany to become Russia's largest trading partner. 5 years later, Russia became China's top supplier of crude. 2018, Russia and China exceeded 100 billion in mutual trade for the first time, part of which was China buying advanced Russian weaponry such as fighter jets and the S-400 anti-aircraft system. The most meaningful manifestation of the Russia-China axis is the military cooperation. In 2003, the two started holding joint military drills. Beginning as low-level drills involving a handful of soldiers, the Russia-China exercises evolved over the years into complex maneuvers with thousands of military personnel on each side. As these military exercises expanded in scope and complexity, references to the Russia-China relationship upgraded from a strategic cooperation to a comprehensive strategic partnership, and upgraded again to a privileged strategic partnership, yet the two still keep most of their important military secrets from each other. But then came the joint air and missile exercise in 2017, showing each other their cards. Stephen Bank, a senior fellow with the American Foreign Policy Council, has called attention to this particular drill, saying it suggests an alliance between Russia and China. That's because the exercise required both nations to put their cards on the table and to display their C4ISR, whatever that means. He wrote, This term refers to command and control, communications and computer, as well as intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, among the most sensitive aspects of a military. The fact that Russia and China shared this information during 2017 drills indicates a new and rare level of trust. Vasily Kashlin, a senior research fellow at Moscow's Higher School of Economics, told the Trumpet on February 11 that this exercise was a step forward, but he said the Vostok 2018 exercise was still more important, with more than 300,000 soldiers, 36,000 vehicles and 1,000 aircraft, not to mention 80 Navy vessels taking part. Vostok 2018 is believed to have been the largest military exercise ever held. China's People's Liberation Army contributed 3,200 troops, 900 combat vehicles and 30 aircraft, making it China's largest ever dispatch of forces abroad for military exercises. Kashin told the Trumpet that the gargantuan drills show how closely the militaries of Russia and China have become, especially as both nations' ties to the US are increasingly strained. Vostok 2018 military exercises held jointly by the Russian Armed Forces and the Chinese People's Liberation Army at Tuskol Range. Russia and China have now held more than 30 sets of military drills as they iron out the details of how to join their forces for potential conflicts. If at some point Russia and China decide jointly to intervene in a local conflict, Kashlin wrote in 2018 in a report for the Center for Naval Analysis, their militaries would act as a very strong force multiplier for each other. Kashlin wrote, China's superior surface navy and its logistical UAV, that's unmanned aerial vehicle, capabilities would be, coupled with Russia's battle-hardened ground and air forces, as well as its air defense, submarine and long-range strike advantages. Some still believe Russia and China have too many differences to ever form a true military alliance. The skeptics say obstacles such as historical border disputes, current water scarcity issues, and conflicting interests in Central Asia are too contentious for Russia and China to unite. On January 29, for example, the geopolitical futures called the idea of a Russia-China alliance a fantasy. Kashin, too, wrote in his report that although Russia and China are laying the groundwork to be able to join forces, currently there are no observable scenarios under which the two sides might undertake a joint action. This clash will rattle the world. Russia and China both have significant ties with Iran and desire to exert great influence in the Middle East. This will perhaps, more than anything else, jolt other nations. The clash between Europe and the Iran-led radical Islam will help create exactly the scenario that Kashin says is presently absent on the world scene. Russia and China will see how powerful Europe has become and how effectively it wields its power. They will see that to challenge this mighty Europe, they must ally. In 2014, after Putin annexed Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula, most of the Europe condemned Russia, but one country supported Moscow's dangerous expansionist moves. Oh yes, China. Mr. Flurry wrote, when these Asian nations, extremely powerful nuclear-armed countries, begin to show solidarity with each other regarding moves like that, what does that portend for the world? I tell you, it's a woe to the world. It will cause many serious problems. Mr. Flurry said that the Russia-China axis is going to affect everyone. Now, that article continues. It's a very, very long article, and it's well worth reading, but it should open everyone's eyes of what's really going on. Now, in my part of the world, Canada, they're just asleep at the switch as usual. You know, they've got their 50,000 troops and that's it. Actually, it's not even troops, that's the armed services totally. America has been drawing down for years, courtesy of the Democrats, which is exactly what happened before World War II. Britain is a financial and military mess. Europe is being controlled by Germany, and it's all starting all over again. It's all going in a big circle, isn't it? It's amazing how things repeat themselves. And the reason things repeat themselves is because people don't learn from history. And they don't teach that in school today, do they? So we're all doomed to repeat history. Let's hope we don't repeat all of that history. Let's hope we can stop it before it starts. An interesting topic today. And as I say, take a listen to my 500th episode and you can hear it in more detail then. But I hope you enjoyed this, and that's my comment for today. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We're also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on these links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio, and click on the like button. And you can hear a review of our morning moments on WHBJ-DB, News, Talk, Radio on Spreaker.com. Join us and many others. And you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.